HQN Books and HarlequinAudio present Slow Dancing at Sunrise by Joe Mcnally, performed by Christina Traister. Chapter 1. Whitney Foster was stuck in a traffic jam on a Thursday afternoon, in the middle of nowhere. She thought she'd left this particular problem in Chicago, but here she was, moving at a snail's pace on a 2-lane country road. She sat fourth in line behind a monstrous green farm machine. The road was twisty, so attempting to pass risked a fate far worse than slowing down for a few miles. At least the view was nice. Seneca Lake stretched out below her, narrow and brilliantly blue. Farmland and vineyards sloped down to the water, and on the other side rose gently to the horizon. A glance at the GPS told Whitney she was only a few miles away from one of the happiest places she'd ever known as a child. A little traffic backup wouldn't spoil her anticipation. The 3-day drive from Chicago to upstate New York was the longest road trip her hybrid SUV had ever seen. It usually just took her to work and back on those rare days she didn't take the train. The fun, yet practical, bright red vehicle had been a rare impulse purchase last year after she'd received her bonus. It was great on gas, and she'd managed to pack a surprising amount of her life into the small cargo area. Her former life, that is. No more bonuses now. No more job. And all because she'd trusted the wrong man. Wrong men. Silly her for assuming the senior partners would do the right thing when she found discrepancies in an audit done by the CEO's nephew. Instead, they'd patted her on the head and told her not to worry, then made her the scapegoat when it all blew up in their faces. They took her job and her reputation. Good times. Brake lights flashed red in front of her as the agricultural machine slowed to a near stop, then mercifully pulled into a farm on the right, raising a cloud of dust as it rumbled up the driveway and past the blue, green, and yellow farmhouse. As frustrated as she was by the delay, the scene made her smile. She'd been around too much pavement and cement the past few years. The increasing number of Victorian houses she passed, painted in bright rainbow colors, were a mainstay of Rendezvous Falls. Aunt Helen had told her the story often. Some famous architect, Whitney drummed her fingers on the steering wheel trying to remember his name, came home to the town after the Civil War. Looking to forget the terrible things he'd seen, the architect started building houses decked out with fanciful gingerbread trim, painted in wild color combinations. People laughed at first, but it wasn't long before everyone wanted the most intricate, most incredible, most colorful house in town. These days, people traveled from all over to see the crazy Victorian painted ladies of Rendezvous Falls. Naturally, an influx of visitors led to the meeting of many different worlds, and, as Aunt Helen used to say, the meeting of hearts. People don't realize what they're missing until they find it, she would say with a wink. Maybe that was why Whitney couldn't think of anywhere else to run to but the Finger Lakes. Just like when she came here as a little girl, she knew she was missing something. Whitney's mom had been trying to make it in Las Vegas back then and rarely had time for actual parenting. Visiting her aunt and uncle here almost every summer gave Whitney the sense of home she'd needed. It was an escape to a magical place, as far removed from Vegas in atmosphere as it was in miles. Route 14 grazed the edge of Rendezvous Falls. Whitney didn't take time to detour through the neighborhoods that led down to the water, but the town hadn't changed much. The houses stood out from the bucolic scenery as boldly as ever. American flags waved from old-fashioned lampposts lining the streets. It was still postcard pretty, and indeed, there was a sign proudly proclaiming, "Voted one of America's prettiest towns." A large home sat on one corner with a for sale sign in front of it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?